Tears for the Tear God, Salt for the Salt Throne, and Gas the Leaf Tribe.
Well, they're eating each other, so that's good. Radical feminist Megan Murphy from Vancouver, I believe, just finished giving a talk at a Toronto public library, which was vehemently protested by other feminists, trans activists, and even Mayor of Toronto John Tory tried to convince the Toronto Public Library to cancel the event. Murphy's unforgivable crime? Her hate speech opinion that needs to be silenced? Trans-identified males are males. What she calls a biological reality. Well, finally, something on which a radical feminist and I can agree.
Hear this dirge and despair.
So this is an article from Sue Ann Levy, who attended the event. And Murphy says, just because a man says he's a man doesn't make him a woman. We're talking about the idea that self-identification doesn't really mean anything. Like, if you went around and raped a bunch of children, and the police caught you and charged you, and you said, oh, I identify as a law-abiding citizen. Oh, well, there it is. We can't be charged with anything because you identify as a law. It doesn't mean anything. It literally doesn't mean anything. I'm sure the trans people are getting upset. Look, if there's a condition you have and you need some sort of therapy, medication, surgery, that's your business. But self-identification in and of itself is meaningless. And of course, the athletes, so many men now identifying as women and breaking world records, just destroying women's sports. From Fallon Fox to the power lifters. Was there a cycling one recently? It's off the rocker. And women being forced to share a washroom or a shelter, or, she doesn't mention, but I will, a prison cell with a transgendered male. And basically suggesting that protecting women's rights isn't bigotry. It's not about transphobia. It's about a woman's right to say no. And she thanked the crowd for not caving to the angry mob, and contended that many in the mob have been brainwashed and don't even know what they're angry about. Now, a lot of this actually goes way back to C16, when Jordan Peterson, Gad Saad, Theron Meyer, the lawyer whose name I can never remember, and others all spoke to the Canadian Senate trying to point to the holes in C16 that would lead to these exact kind of problems that we're seeing now. That Jessica Yaniv, apparently, she pronounces her own name wrong, whatever, thinks that she can pressure a woman into touching her genitals by demanding a bikini wax from female estheticians. Yeah. And there's also a woman, I believe an indigenous woman in a prison, who's being sexually harassed by a transgendered inmate, but there's nothing they can do about it because there's nowhere to move her because she identifies as a woman. He, maybe? Who knows? Who the fuck knows now at this point? Because the law, the policies behind C16 are all written so poorly that a man can go murder somebody, rob a store, and then when he gets caught, say, I identify as a woman. And that's enough under the law in Canada to be put in a women's prison. So, and the Senate's response to these observations and arguments was, that's silly, no one will ever do that, stop being a bigot, you stupid bigot. Now here we are. Here we have an article from the Post Millennial that points out that the protest was a result of a petition written and publicized by a group of writers and publishers. And I want to just tear into a little bit of this if I can. So from the petition, that's not right. Those who want to disseminate hate speech today know that they can misrepresent, then weaponize the phrase freedom of speech to get what they want. This is a group of people that weaponized the term hate speech, then pointed the hate speech gun at Meghan Murphy and tried to fire deplatform bullets at her and missed. And they have the gall to claim that the term freedom of speech is weaponized when it's used against them. These are writers. These are academics. To get what they want. An audience and space to speak to and then mobilize that audience against marginalized communities. Citation needed. I have an opinion. I'm going to speak. And then mobilize? That's an extra step. That's not included in my opinion. Just so you know, you fucking retards. Meanwhile, these idiots actually mobilize a group of people to go and protest against Meghan Murphy. It's all projection. All of it is just projection. Now, here's where it gets rich. While everyone has freedom of speech, we want to once again point to the limits of those freedoms when certain acts and speech infringe on the freedom of others, particularly those in marginalized communities. While everyone has freedom of speech, not everyone has freedom of speech. You only have freedom of speech to say the things with which we agree. That's not freedom. You can't say you have freedom of speech except, then it's literally not freedom of speech. That's it. It's over. It's gone. These people are stupid. They're just stupid, stupid people. No opinion I express by the saying of it can infringe on the rights of another person. It simply is not possible. It's not fucking possible. Apparently Murphy said something that Sue Ann Levy tweeted it. We've normalized thought crime. And it's actually worse than that. We've normalized thought pre-crime or pre-thought crime, like Minority Report, where they know you're going to do something in the future, so they arrest you before you do it and prevent you from committing the crime. Except this is thought pre-crime, that you hold an opinion so terrible that some other person or group of people might, in the future, do a bad thing if you say that. So you're in trouble now. We also want to point out that hate groups do not have a right to use publicly funded facilities to meet and organize. That in of itself, there's the problem with the weaponized hate speech term, is that you can now turn that term on whoever, call the group of people a hate group, and deny them further rights. Pure insanity. Now, the post-millennial, definitely biased in the same direction I am. Often not the best source for straight information or all the information at once. And, not going to lie, occasionally poorly written. This part here, though, I found this pretty good. So we're just going to read this. This is a completely absurd supposition, made all the more inane and caustic because it is coming from a group of writers, people for whom free speech should be the most cherished right. Writers, of all people, should be advocating for the inalienable right of everyone to speak, to make use of public gathering space, and to not be denied that right simply because a couple of thousand people disagree with them. Disagreement is not violence. Why do we keep having to say this to writers, academics, and intellectuals? They really should have the entirety of history at their fingertips to tell them just how dangerous, illiberal, and totalitarian this kind of petitioning is. Go ahead, stand outside the library, hold up some placards. That's completely within your rights. But trying to tell a library to deny basic rights that you want to make use of yourself is anathema to, well, being a writer. Free speech should never be conditional. Protesting the library by refusing to attend or take part in literary events and by protesting speakers with whom they disagree are both reasonable ways to express displeasure. But trying to pressure a library into banning speech is not an act of bravery, but one of cowardice. Thankfully, the Toronto Library will not bend to the will of the totalitarian writers. I believe that's Vickery Bowles is the name of the muckety muck who stood firm. They released a statement. As a public library and public institution, we have an obligation to protect free speech. When Toronto Public Library makes meeting rooms available to the public we serve, we need to make them available to all on an equitable basis, regardless of the beliefs or affiliations of individuals or groups requesting their use. As a public institution, our primary obligation is to uphold the fundamental freedoms of freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression as enshrined in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It's reassuring to see that in a society where writers have turned it to a censorious mob, at least the public institutions that shelve their books are still committed to the fundamental right of free speech. And, the end.
Relevant links to shit I said in the description? Maybe. I'm Irving Twin. Like, subscribe, or don't. It's a free country. At least it used to be.
They would silence us?